The Sarasota County Bar Association is a proud partner in bringing you the law in Sarasota. With voluntary membership of over 900 lawyers and judges, the Sarasota County Bar Association is your community's leader in advancing legal professionalism, practice development, and public service. Visit www.sarasotabar.com for more information and to use the online directory list to find an attorney.
Welcome to Law in Sarasota. This presentation is brought to you by the Community Foundation of Sarasota and the Sarasota County Bar Association. They support this program with charitable grants. We are also indebted to the Education Channel, its directors and camera staff here on the campus of Suncoast Technical College. We're coming to you from the channel's state-of-the-art studio at the corner of Beneva and Proctor Roads in Sarasota. We thank all of them for making this Law and Sarasota program possible. Anyone who has visited our urban centers in downtown Sarasota or Venice has seen folks living on the streets in squalid conditions. Many show signs of serious mental illness. They're unkempt, unwashed, and often in ragged clothes. They may be talking to themselves, talking nonsense, or staring at others with blank looks. We've all seen them. They're prone to get in trouble with the law. Many have committed a number of minor offenses. They're frequent flyers, not just in our jails, but in our crowded emergency rooms and mental health facilities. Enormous sums are expended prosecuting and treating this demographic, with little impact so far on their self-destructive behavior. Today, we're going to talk about a program that targets this difficult population. A program that offers the potential to change the lives of these unfortunate folks and that can maybe help our community become a better place to visit, shop, and dine. We're going to talk about Sarasota County's Comprehensive Treatment Court. Our guests are Judge Quartermaine and Melissa Larkin-Skinner, who is the Chief Clinical Officer and CEO at Centerstone of Florida. So, welcome Judge Quartermaine.
Thank you for having me.
And also Ms. Melissa for coming here today. I always like our audience to know something about our guests. So before I get into the actual subject that we're here for today, I want to explain a little bit about your background. You're a Sarasota native, graduated from Pineview, went to Stetson University. I think you had an undergraduate degree in, was it economics and a minor in French?
Yes.
Then you went on to the University of Miami. And you also, in a former life, were a renowned water skier.
Yes.
So we can't leave that part out. And I think I need to say that you've changed careers. You were appointed as a judge in 2013, and you have a drier occupation now, both literally and figuratively. So we're going to talk about that. And before we do that, I want to talk to Ms. Larkin-Skinner. You have a double major, or double degree master's, right?
Right. I have a master's in rehabilitation counseling and a master's in business administration.
And you've got over 20 years doing behavioral health.
I do.
So you've seen every type of problem, every type of mental health issue that can come before a therapist.
I have.
And you also do mental health counseling.
I do. I'm a licensed mental health counselor in the state of Florida.
Okay. So let's talk about this thing called the Comprehensive Treatment Court. And first, let's kind of step back. Judge Quartermaine, why do we need something like the Comprehensive Treatment Court?
You know, it's an interesting avenue how we got to this point. And it starts decades ago. A long time ago, maybe the 40s and 50s, there were localized institutions for the severely mentally ill. And over time, due to state funding issues and perhaps a perceived progress in treatment, those localized or community-based facilities became statewide institutions. And there were fewer of them, and they were bigger. Over time, the level of care diminished, and as a result, lawsuits were filed. The most important lawsuit was the Wilkes case in either Georgia or Alabama. And after working its way through the system for almost 20 years, the Supreme Court determined that the level of care simply would have to rise. And there were very specific requirements, including how hot the water would have to be, what the ratio of patients to workers or healthcare workers would be, the types of medicines, and so on and so forth. Well, instead of meeting those requirements, and I think it's important to understand that these statewide institutions were enormous. I mean, there was one that had 10,000 beds. So they became problematic, obviously, and that's the genesis of the lawsuit. But the state, in order to meet their budget concerns, instead of raising the level of care, the facilities began to close.
The bottom line, they turned these folks loose.
Yes.
Because we had a facility in DeSoto County, I know you probably remember it, Melissa, the G. Pierce Wood facility, and when they shut that down, a lot of the folks that were inmates there, probably all the patients, turned loose on the street for the most part. So then, as a judge, what do you see? How does that affect your work every day? What is it about the people that you've seen when they come to court, the types of people that you see that need a special treatment?
The people that I see today are the same people that I saw 10 years ago when I worked in the court system in a different profession. I was a prosecutor for a while. I worked with the judges for a while as a research assistant. Now I'm a judge. So these are the same people that we see over and over again, and they simply got worse over time. They present in similar fashions in terms of what you described earlier, being unkempt, apparently incoherent and mentally ill, and they appear on low-level nonviolent charges.
One of the things that I think our audience needs to know is that judges see these people almost every day at our first appearances. Now, under state law, when a person's arrested for an offense, does not make bond, he or she goes in front of a judge or a magistrate 24/7, it's 365 days a year, and the judge has to decide whether to let them out or not on bond. And the demographic that we're talking about are really seriously mentally ill folks. And in the past, the only option we had was to turn them loose again. There was no treatment regimen built into that release. So tell me now, with the first off, how did the treatment court come about? You were actually the instigator of that. You got the stakeholders together. You got the funding. You were instrumental in organizing and implementing this, which was an enormous task, by the way. And thank you for doing that incredible amount of work. What's the purpose of the court?
The purpose of the court is to identify those individuals who come into custody, and if they are there on a nonviolent misdemeanor charge and are deemed to be seriously mentally ill with the inability to meet their own basic needs, then they will be diverted from jail. So it's important because many of these people, even though they're in on low-level charges, they cycle through so frequently that they can spend up to 9 out of 12 months in custody, albeit they'll be in for 5 days here, out for a day, in for another day. So the jail is not a mental health facility, and these people are getting worse by going through that pattern.
Well, I know you've been sitting as a county judge and seen a lot of these folks, but I can recall going to first appearances and doing this review of these cases, and I can remember a person that had 111 misdemeanor sort of offenses for trespass, petty theft, and you look at this person, you can tell there's something going on mentally with them. But what's your choice as a judge? You've got them in here, you know, it's not a serious offense, but my gosh, the guy's made a career. Melissa, you've seen these folks too. What are the typical diagnoses for these people that we see on the street? What's going on with them that makes them that way?
So primarily what we're seeing is schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, bipolar disorder, depression, and post-traumatic stress disorder, which can vary in severity, but these people that we're talking about have very severe forms of those disorders.
Sounds to me like it's a very difficult population to change behaviors in. Are there things you can do and that you are doing in this program?
There absolutely are. And really, I think part of the human condition is that we all resist changing our behaviors even when we know we need to. So these folks have a particularly hard time doing that because they have a mental health issue that's interfering with, let's say, their thought processes, with their everyday ability to survive. So it's really interfering with them being able to kind of get it together. They're also dealing with poverty, lack of housing, things of that nature.
And Erika, this is a new program. When actually did it kick off here in Sarasota County?
It kicked off on March 1st of this year, and it was after about 3 years of planning.
Okay, so let's take a typical case. Let's start with the arrest and the person coming in front of a judge. How does the screening happen? Who does the screening initially, Melissa?
So it begins at the jail. So there's an arrest. They're taken to the jail for booking, and the staff at the jail will do an initial, both the nurse as well as the corrections officers. Many of these people, especially now in the beginning of the program, are well known to everyone that's involved in the process. And so they're identifying them, and then they contact Centerstone as well as the Public Defender's Office and supervised release, right? So it's called supervised release program because they have to look at their charges, make sure it's a misdemeanor. And then Centerstone comes in and does a mental status exam to find out what's going on with the person, have a preliminary diagnosis, and see what other issues the person may have. Like Judge Quartermaine said, are they meeting their basic needs? And if not, what do we need to do about it?
So let's say the person qualifies for the Comprehensive Treatment Court. What services can be provided to that person that they wouldn't have gotten before the program started?
So what actually happens is Judge Quartermaine, with the agreement of the public defender and the state attorney, enters an order placing them in Centerstone's custody. And so Centerstone staff will go and pick the person up, and then they make sure that there's a place for them to go. And we have partnerships with the Salvation Army in Sarasota as well as community assisted and supportive living in Sarasota, so that we have immediate housing options available. And then the goal is to further investigate what's going on in their lives to make sure that we get all the services in place that they need, hook them up with the right referral sources like medical care. We start the process of applying for benefits for them because many of them have either had benefits in the past and lost them, or they need them because they've never had anyone help them apply. So we do all of those things, and those are the services that aren't necessarily available in any other program.
How about medication? How do you get them meds if they qualify for medication?
We have a psychiatrist as part of the program, and they do see the psychiatrist. And then the staff will help purchase the medications. And we also have a nurse. So one of the things that works really well, especially with schizophrenia, is long-acting injectable medication, so that a person only has to have a shot maybe once every 2 weeks or once a month, and they work that long instead of having to take pills every day.
What's the incentive for them? How do you sell the program? Because I assume that it's something they can reject if they don't like the concept.
They can. I think the incentive is that they have a safe place to live. They have people that are helping them meet their basic needs.
And then get food, medicine, and housing?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Well, and the incentive immediately is to get out of jail because none of them enjoy being in jail. And they are diverted on an expedited basis in most circumstances. So they go into this short-term triage housing, like Melissa was saying, either at the Salvation Army or the community assisted living. And that is a place where the short-term plan begins. We're going to get you stable. We're going to figure out what your needs are. Did you have family that you've become alienated from? What is your mental illness? What kind of medications are you going to need? And how do we plan for you to live long-term? Now, the criminal system cannot hold on to these people indefinitely, but we can put them on a track to succeed by setting them up with the long-term entitlement benefits, assuming they are entitled, a plan for mental health treatment, which would be through either coastal behavioral or the health department, meaning that they would have a set up schedule for their injectables or whatever medicine they need, and obviously housing. So there are places for folks to live around town where they can live long-term, be independent, and once they're stable, live a meaningful life and perhaps become employed.
Isn't one of those the Castle program?
Yes.
Explain what that is.
Well, Castle is a bunch of different houses owned by a non-for-profit organization run by Scott Eller, who has been, in my opinion, dynamic in the world of finding placement for those individuals who have been hard to place by using government benefits and grants and the scattered housing approach so that it is more in line with an assisted living or group home as opposed to one large facility.
So do they have to, Melissa, do they have to be sober when they're in this program, or do you tolerate them continuing to use alcohol or whatever?
So we go with a housing first approach, and Castle and the Salvation Army have actually been fantastic partners in that. We believe that people need to have a safe place to go to really begin their road to recovery. And so that's what we do. Now, relapse, so addiction is a disease, and one of the parts of a disease is that there is the potential for relapse. But one of the things that we do is engage them in treatment so that they can learn about sobriety, learn about relapse prevention, but we do that all at once. So it's not like we're treating a mental illness, we're getting housing, and then we're treating the addiction. We're doing all of those things at the same time to try to get people on the right track.
Kind of a holistic approach, trying to address all the problems.
Absolutely, because none of them can be done in isolation. It doesn't make any sense.
Do you have employees, or tell me what kind of staff that you have that helps assist with this?
So we have the Director of Forensic Services, Jane Roseborough. She actually is responsible for administering the program. And then we have mental health counselors and a bachelor's level person, and then we have a person who focuses mostly on data.
One of the problems with the homeless that come to my attention is that they don't have an address where they can get mail or can make a phone call. And that's really essential for getting a lot of the services. So do you have people that interact with these folks all the time and try to get them like to the court appearances and to make sure they get to the doctor and that sort of thing?
Yes, we provide transportation as part of the program. The staff are in contact with the participants daily, every other day at least, especially right now because they're all in crisis. You know, these are 25 people who've just been arrested and are now out of jail and maybe haven't been getting the services that they need. And so the staff rally around them and just make sure they get to wherever they need to go.
You've explained it once as trying to put a puzzle together, find what the pieces are, and see if you can fit.
Find the pieces and put them all together, yes.
All right. And do you get access to their histories, their medical histories, or their mental health histories?
We do. We try to get access. We get whatever the court may have, whatever the jail has. And, you know, I have to say Major Bell and Sheriff Knight are fantastic partners in this endeavor, as well as Armor, Prison Health Services. So we get information from everybody that may have it.
So say a person gets into the program and seems to be on the right footing, and it's a misdemeanor, so I guess at some point, what happens to the charge?
It would be dismissed.
Okay, but they come back in 3 months later. Can they become eligible again or not?
You know, this population, which would be, like I said, the seriously mentally ill, and the inability to meet a basic need, is a tough population. And there is some research on those individuals who are substance abused and how often it takes for an individual to accept treatment and to engage in it meaningfully. And it could be 7 or 8 times that you approach that person before they latch on to the treatment. And they may never. But we are going to treat them in a humane way. And if they want to try again, we're going to give them the opportunity to try again.
So it's really not, you're not really trying to cure them. You're trying to get them into a stable life where they can get fed and get treatment for their disabilities or whatever. But there's really little hope that they're really going to become what we consider to be unaffected or normal folks, right?
Well, I'm not sure that that's exactly right. So there's no cure that's known for mental health disorders. But what we do is we teach people basically how to live with them and how to have quality of life in spite of the disorders. And we do have hope that that can happen because it happens every day in here locally and throughout the world. People do get on the road to recovery both from mental health issues as well as substance use disorders.
You mentioned misdemeanors as being criteria, one of the criteria you look at. What types of offenses are we talking about?
We are talking about trespass at a business or a park, being in a park after hours, open container, possession of marijuana, possession of spice, paraphernalia. It's those types of charges. And I want to comment on what Melissa was just saying. My experience with the folks who are ready to become engaged has been so positive and inspiring. And one of the things that is interesting about a mental illness as opposed to maybe other types of illnesses, including substance abuse, is that there is a lot of hope and people do recover. And I see the gamut, people who have been mentally ill their whole life, or people who have gotten sick maybe in their early 20s, which is typical of schizophrenia, even people who are 50 who just got, sick. So all of these people, I have seen examples of success. So I'm very, very hopeful for everybody.
Is there a role for guardians of these folks? Is there something that the legal profession could do to assist with the project, providing support?
Yes. So a few of the individuals who come in to the program are incompetent from a criminal standpoint, meaning incompetent to stand trial. And when that is the case, historically, we have let misdemeanor defendants go. But because we have the ability to provide treatment for them, we can put them on conditional release. That may include Baker Acting them if they are truly in a crisis mode, or simply putting them into the oversight that CTC has been able to provide. If it is that they are in such a condition they cannot even apply for benefits or really understand what's happening at all, then certainly we need to have a guardian appointed, because we need to get them into a place that will provide long-term care. And that could be a nursing home, but the first thing that needs to happen is the procurement of benefits, and that cannot occur without a guardian. I will say the elder law bar has been very, very helpful in assisting us with that process, and we have begun it with one individual.
Well, let's say there's folks watching this program who would be willing to volunteer and qualify to be a guardian for these folks. Melissa, how can they contact, who should they contact to do that?
So they can contact Jane Roseborough, and that number is 741-782-4150. And if they could just call her, let them know they saw this program and that they're interested in doing that on a temporary basis, that would be great.
Well, the program seems to have the value. If these people are living a pretty miserable existence and you come in with these resources, hopefully the change in that environment would be sufficient to get them back into a better situation that they would accept voluntarily and change their life that way. Well, let's just talk briefly about the funding. Where did the money come for this?
The money came from a few different places. We applied for a grant, which was $1.2 million. But in order to apply, we needed matching funds. And so that would have been another $1.2 million. The City of Sarasota, including a board called the Downtown Improvement District, came together and they put in $400,000. The county put in $400,000. And then private philanthropy put in $400,000, split between three different philanthropies: the Charles and Marjorie Barancic Foundation, the Community Foundation of Sarasota, and the Gulf Coast Community Foundation.
Sounds like a great community effort all around. So
Absolutely.
Well, folks, this is all we have time for today. In closing, let me say there is no one answer to the problems of the hardcore mentally ill and homeless. The Comprehensive Treatment Court is one way our courts in our county are searching for humane ways to make positive changes in the lives of our residents who, because of mental illness, are unable to meet their basic needs. And thanks to the leadership of and the passion of Judge Quartermaine, and the expert services of Centerstone, progress is being made in this most challenging area of social services. I'm sure all of us here in Sarasota wish you continued success with that, and hopefully you have many folks that improve, and we thank all of you folks for watching. This is Lee Hayworth signing off for Law in Sarasota.
For more than 36 years, the Community Foundation of Sarasota County has worked one-on-one with estate planning attorneys and their clients to make a lasting impact through philanthropy. Stable, trusted, and knowledgeable, the Community Foundation safeguards the charitable legacies of donors to ensure that they continue for years to come. Visit www.cfsarasota.org or call 955-3000 for more information.